Watch Hurricane 2005 in the path of Katrina tomorrow at 9 on CBS 4.
And good evening from New Orleans. Hopes that this stricken city had turned a corner were shattered this evening with word that local police have been involved in what appears to be a tragic case of mistaken identity. A group of Army Corps engineers was shot at, some of them apparently killed, after police believed that they were looters or armed men. Elsewhere, the vast majority of Hurricane Katrina survivors have left, and attention is now turning to the gruesome task of finding the dead. Here's the latest. Louisiana today confirmed 59 deaths, but federal officials echoed the warnings of local authorities that thousands more bodies will be discovered under the debris. The governor of Texas says after accepting 250,000 evacuees, his state is out of room and will airlift some to other states. The United States today accepted an offer of disaster aid from the United Nations. And the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has sealed New Orleans' biggest levee breach from further flooding. We'll have more on those stories in just a moment, but first we go to Mika Brzezinski in New York for the latest on the death of Chief Justice William Rehnquist. Mika?
John, thank you. Chief Justice Rehnquist died at his home late last night, almost 1 year after being diagnosed with thyroid cancer and just weeks shy of his 81st birthday. CBS News correspondent Jim Stewart looks back at his 3 decades on the bench.
The Honorable William H. Rehnquist.
He was last seen by the general public at President Bush's second swearing in. It was a role he cherished and one his colleagues appreciated. Momentous occasions, after all, were William H. Rehnquist's stock in trade. Who can forget his solemnity, for example, at President Clinton's impeachment trial?
And he hereby is acquitted of the charges in the said articles.
Or his bland announcement of the most divisive case of his tenure.
We'll hear argument now in number 00949, George W. Bush and Richard Cheney versus Albert Gore.
But in his 19 years as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, William H. Rehnquist's legacy extends far beyond the headline cases. He oversaw a fundamental rollback of liberal causes and championed a far more conservative agenda for America. Under Rehnquist, criminals found it harder to get multiple appeals in federal court. The line between church and state became more porous. Affirmative action became more difficult to implement, and the states gained more power. It was an agenda, says Georgetown law professor Mark Tushnet, who has written about the Rehnquist court, that never wavered.
Over the years, is this a man who moderated his views or changed them to any significant degree?
I don't think his fundamental views changed over the roughly 30 years he was on the court.
A Wisconsin native who served in the Army Air Corps during World War II, Rehnquist was plucked from obscurity in 1969 by President Nixon to be Assistant Attorney General. Just 2 years later, his colleagues learned he'd been elevated again, this time to Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, and from the beginning, he was a man of few words for the press.
Will you answer some questions?
No, I'd rather not. Thanks.
Rehnquist's conservative ways on the court later caught the eye of Mr. Conservative himself, who elevated Rehnquist to Chief Justice and even got a grin from the man with a surprise birthday party.
If anyone...
His last years were not comfortable ones on the court, however. Physically, in addition to his battle with cancer, Rehnquist was hobbled by a bad back, and professionally he chafed that he had never been able to outlaw abortion.
I think he'd look back and say his greatest disappointment was his inability to lead the court to overrule Roe and Wade.
A case that Rehnquist trained his eyes on for years and one his successor is almost certain to confront. Jim Stewart, CBS News, Washington.
And when we come back, John Roberts will have complete coverage from the flood zone.
Like that fresh, clean scent of Febreze on your couch? Now you can get it in your laundry. Tide, Downy, and Bounce. Now available with the light, fresh scent of Febreze. A fresh approach to laundry.
Oh, okay. There's never been a better time to talk with your doctor about Ambien. Because now you can try Ambien free. Visit Ambien.com for details.
My dad and I have been in the septic business for over 40 years. A septic system today can cost many, many thousands of dollars to replace.
Rid-X uses bacteria and enzymes to help prevent septic backups.
I've always recommended Rid-X, and I've never recommended anything else.
Want to know a secret? Some adults don't eat breakfast. That's why there's Delicious Ensure. Complete balanced nutrition, vitamins, minerals, food energy. If you don't eat right, eat smart. Ensure. Nutrition for a healthier you.
Gee, I had a really good time tonight.
How would you call tonight's date, Clyde?
Well, Keith, looks like Mr. Graybeard is about to strike out. Ooh, bruise and refuse. Get that man our Just for Men brushing gel. It penetrates tough gray and puts it away.
5 easy minutes, hair looks natural.
It's a whole new ball game.
Here's the windup.
Ooh, the shot got played. Home run. Another win with Just for Men. The Rejuvenator.
Denture wearers, we stained a string of pearls in barbecue sauce, not just to prove the stain-removing strength of Efferdent Plus or the freshening power of its Listerine ingredients, but to give every denture wearer the confidence to show those pearly whites. The confident clean of Efferdent Plus.
I am dedicated. I am disciplined. I am determined. And I'm a diabetic. And that's how I feel when I test with my meter, the Accu-Check Aviva.
The new Accu-Check Aviva system, designed to fill correctly and test right the first time, to make every strip count. The Accu-Check Aviva. Switch to the system that makes every strip count.
If you ran a drug company, what would you change?
I would try to prevent disease, not just treat it.
I would go after the really tough diseases.
I'd make it so folks wouldn't have to choose between their groceries and their medicine.
At Merck, we believe in the same things you do. Because 50 years ago, George Merck told us to put patients first by creating novel medicines and vaccines and getting them to the people who need them.
I would try to see everything through the eyes of a patient.
Merck, where patients come first.
New Orleans now looks like an armed camp with military patrols on armored vehicles in the streets to control the violence. In a still developing story, the New Orleans police say this evening they shot and killed 5 people carrying guns on a bridge. The Army Corps of Engineers says 5 of their contractors were shot and killed. It's the last thing this reeling city needed to hear. Nearly 1 full week after Katrina roared ashore, the search for survivors is far from over, and the accounting of the dead has barely begun. Army helicopters kept up the search today, roaring above the floodwaters of eastern New Orleans. The focus is on locating the remaining survivors before the death toll goes any higher. This young boy lost his mother.
Somebody push her in the water.
These rescuers from Texas are mapping out the neighborhoods. 7 days after the hurricane, they're still pulling people from the water, some reluctant to go.
I think we are having some difficulties getting some of the folks out of their houses because they think they're safer there. This is the world that they've known all of their lives.
Foley Sims is among the ones who didn't want to leave. He was evacuated earlier, taken to the convention center. Things were so bad there, he waited back home. There was no help there, so you thought it would be better to come back out here and find a home to live in the flood?
Yeah.
That's extraordinary.
Oh, yeah? Well, we've been doing all right here.
A surprising number are living in this landscape of devastation, in toxic waters amid rotting bodies, staying alive with food from the flooded supermarket down the street.
Everybody got to eat.
Deirdre Humphrey's been living in a friend's house that's above the water, plans to stay as long as she can.
Monday it'll be 7 days since this thing happened. I'll wait till Monday and see if I still have any sanity left with just looking at this all night.
How did the flood affect her? She took us down the street for a look.
This is our house. Well, we've been for 35 years.
Water was hip deep here. Now it's only shin high. But like so many others in New Orleans, she has lost everything.
It's depressing and sad, and I stay over here for hours at a time. I just sit in a chair, in the wet chair, and look at stuff. I do break down emotionally and cry and all of that stuff, but I don't know. I just thank God we're still living.
With that levee break now repaired, city officials will soon be able to start pumping a lot of the water out of downtown New Orleans. But in the area that we were in today, that could take up to a month. So it's highly likely that those people won't be able to hang on that long. When the CBS News returns, we'll move further east along the Gulf Coast to see more of Katrina's devastation and small miracles in the eye of the storm.
My dad and I have been in the septic business for over 40 years. A septic system today can cost many, many thousands of dollars to replace. In my opinion, using Rid-X once a month makes costly repairs less likely.
Rid-X uses 100% natural bacteria and enzymes to break down hard-to-dissolve waste, even paper, to help keep your septic system operating efficiently and prevent backups between pumpings.
I've always recommended Rid-X, and I've never recommended anything else.
Rid-X, the #1 septic treatment brand.
And now, more of the 10 big reasons to shop Big Lots this week. Number 7, this food storage organizer system, just $7. And reason number 1, Turtle Wax automotive wipes, just $1 each. See all 10 amazing deals at Big Lots or BigLots.com. What's your deal today?
Sadly, arthritis pain can mean the end of life's little pleasures. But not for people who use Aleve. People whose doctors have told them the good news about the strength and safety of Aleve. The good news that only Aleve can stop arthritis pain all day with just 2 pills. That would take 8 Tylenol. Take back the pleasure arthritis pain took away. Ask your doctor about the good news. Ask your doctor about Aleve.
Lunesta. People everywhere are discovering it. What are you waiting for? Talk to your doctor to see if Lunesta could make a difference for you.
Cholesterol comes from 2 sources. It's not only from that footlong Frank, but from your Grandpa Frank. And not just from that Virginia ham, but from your Aunt Ginny, too. Your cholesterol doesn't just come from food. It also has a lot to do with family history. Ask your doctor about Vytorin. A healthy diet is important, but when it's not enough, adding Vytorin can help. Vytorin treats the 2 sources of cholesterol, food, and what your body makes naturally based on family history. Vytorin was proven in clinical studies to lower bad cholesterol more than Lipitor alone. Vytorin is not for everyone, including people with liver problems, women who are nursing, pregnant, or may become pregnant. Unexplained muscle pain or weakness could be a sign of a rare but serious side effect. Vytorin may interact with other medicines or certain foods, increasing your risk of getting this serious side effect. Simple blood tests are needed to check for liver problems. Follow a healthy diet and ask your doctor about adding Vytorin. For the 2 sources of cholesterol, remember the name Vytorin. That's Vytorin.
Why did the levees fail New Orleans? And how will they get fixed? The answers tonight on 60 Minutes.
This week, gas prices are through the roof since Hurricane Katrina. Nationwide, they're already over $3 a gallon. How much higher will they go? Find out what's next on The Early Show.
We have an update for you now on that breaking news at the top of the broadcast about the shootings here in New Orleans. As you can imagine, the nature of the devastation and the lack of communications here has led to a lot of misinformation. We have straightened that out. Apparently, a group of Army Corps of Engineers contractors were on a bridge. They were shot at by a gunman. Police killed that gunman, but the Army Corps of Engineers are just fine. The rescue and recovery efforts here in New Orleans have their counterparts all along the Mississippi coast as well. Cynthia Bowers is in Biloxi, where the prayers of the survivors are mixed with murmurings of discontent.
This is a tense time.
On a Biloxi beachfront where last Sunday a landmark Episcopal church stood,
rejoice in hope. Be patient in suffering.
The hope showed up in the middle of Mass, but the patience is wearing thin. For nearly a week, this state has been suffering in relative silence, overshadowed by the horrors in New Orleans.
I'm going to say it, New Orleans is not the only bad area.
And the pain here is deep. The death toll now tops 160 and continues to climb. Families that escape death now struggle to survive day-to-day life.
We're just really still don't have a lot of infrastructure in a lot of places. We're getting food and water to people, but distribution is not as good as we want it to be.
Hospitals are now seeing a surge in secondary illnesses like dysentery that crop up when simple things like drinking water become hazardous to your health.
This place used to be a shelter. What happened?
We had some problems with children and some adults where they were running fevers, nausea, and some diarrhea, so they were taken to the hospital.
330 in all, families who'd lost everything seeking shelter again, this time from disease rather than devastation.
A short time ago, authorities confirmed something of a miracle. After all this time, search and rescue units have managed to find a person still alive buried in the rubble. So amid all the death and all the destruction tonight comes word of life. John?
Cynthia Bowers for us tonight in Biloxi, Mississippi. Cynthia, thanks. Just ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, helping hands from around the country on behalf of Katrina's victims.
Hey, a new drink. Ingredients: high fructose corn syrup, inositol, pyridoxine hydrochloride, maltodextrin, glucurono something or other. Of course, my favorite, caffeine. Or Florida orange juice. Ingredients: fresh air, rain, sunshine.
A glass of Florida orange juice every morning is a natural way to get many of the nutrients you need. Florida orange juice. Healthy, pure, and simple.
All of us have internal plumbing. But for some of us with frequent urges, our pipes just don't work as well as they should. Sometimes you worry you could spring an embarrassing leak. So why deal with it on your own when there's something more you can do? Treat it once daily with Vesicare. Vesicare can reduce urges and may even help relieve bladder leakage. If you have certain types of stomach, urinary, or glaucoma problems, do not take Vesicare. While taking Vesicare, if you experience a serious allergic reaction, severe abdominal pain, or become constipated for 3 or more days, tell your doctor right away. Common side effects are dry mouth, constipation, blurred vision, and indigestion. So why wait? Ask your doctor today if Vesicare is right for you. Fewer urges and leaks. With Vesicare, it's not just a pipe dream.
Just announced, the Chevy employee discount continues on 05 vehicles and is now available on 06 full-size trucks. From the family of Chevy trucks, the most dependable, longest-lasting trucks on the road. The discount price is right on the window. That's the Chevy Total Value Promise. Right now, get a 2006 Silverado 1500 regular cab WT for under $16,200. See your local Chevy dealer today.
If you have indoor or outdoor allergies, ask your doctor about something different. Singulair. While many allergy medicines block histamine, Singulair works differently by blocking leukotrienes, an underlying cause of allergy symptoms. And Singulair is now approved to help relieve both indoor and outdoor allergy symptoms for a full 24 hours. Side effects are generally mild and vary by age and may include headache, ear infection, sore throat, and upper respiratory infection. Singulair, a different way to treat indoor and outdoor allergies.
Hurricane Katrina has been putting thousands of people in this city and the Gulf Coast through ordeals that most of us can barely imagine. But many are somehow finding a way to keep the faith to get through the darkest days of their lives. As we hear now from Lee Cowan.
We've heard it over and over again in this storm-ravaged city. We hope to go to heaven, they say, because we've certainly seen hell.
People are calling, oh Lord, where the Lord is, Jesus, Jesus. And I tell them that Jesus doesn't work here anymore.
There are times it would be pretty hard to argue that New Orleans had not been forsaken. The almost biblical proportions of this disaster are impossible to ignore.
Whatever you believe, whether the storm was the result of fate or demons or just plain bad luck, faith has found a following here. Certainly it was tested. Why wouldn't it be tested? But New Orleans has always been a city of spirit, and not just the kind that comes out of a bottle.
We don't have nothing.
We found Stacy Royal looking for help at the New Orleans airport, where departure lounges are littered with despair. Here, pastors wear bright orange t-shirts. In addition to everything Stacy lost, she almost lost her faith, too.
At one time, I had to question God, you know, but I knew that he would make a way, and I did get out. Me and my family did get out.
If we wanted to, we could sit here all day and just throw a little, kind of depress ourselves, focusing on the negative stuff. So I like to try to turn the corner and say, hey, man, we're alive.
We gather together. Those who could came together in churches, but so many of the churches are gone. In the ones still standing, there were a few still kneeling, waiting for the answer to the one question everyone is asking: why?
And perhaps this is God's way of stripping us of many things to allow us to realize what is truly important.
looking for the divine in the midst of so much destruction. Lee Cowan, CBS News, New Orleans.
And that's the CBS Evening News for this Sunday. There will be more on the devastation in the Gulf later tonight on 60 Minutes. First thing tomorrow on The Early Show and on CBSNews.com. I'm John Roberts in New Orleans. Thanks for making CBS your choice for news. Have a good night.
For news 24 hours a day, click on CBSNews.com. Brought to you in part by Walmart, bringing your community jobs, low prices, and support for neighborhood programs.
Why did the levees fail New Orleans? And how will they get fixed? The answers tonight on 60 Minutes.
Experience CBS News.
Next on CBS 4 News at 6:30, breaking news, reports of New Orleans police officers shooting and killing several people carrying guns.
The military rescue mission in the city marches on. Thousands more people airlifted to safety. CBS 4's Brian Andrews and Mike Hirsch are live in Louisiana.
Meanwhile, South Florida firefighters are getting in on the relief effort.
And churchgoers pray for the victims. Live team coverage after Katrina coming up.
Plus, Supreme Court Chief Justice William Rehnquist loses his battle with cancer. Good evening. I'm Ileana Varela.
And I'm Dewan Strader. CBS 4 News at 6:30 starts right now.
Now, live. This is CBS 4 News at 6:30.
From rooftops and from the water, helicopters pluck hurricane victims to safety in New Orleans.
Here at home,
Chad Huntley, David Brent, John Chen. Tom Brokaw.
Hurricane Katrina. The federal government acknowledges thousands killed, rooftop rescues, and house-to-house searches to save others still trapped. Mean streets. Shootouts in the middle of all the chaos today in New Orleans. Tough questions for federal, state, and local officials, and questions about the background of the man at the center of the storm. And William Rehnquist, the life and legacy of the Chief Justice of the United States, and the looming struggle over a court with 2 vacancies to fill.
This is a special edition of NBC Nightly News with John Seigenthaler, reporting tonight from New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone, from the Garden District in New Orleans. Still underwater tonight, an area of the city where rescue workers and helicopters and boats continue to find stranded residents alive, where the smell of sewage and death is overwhelming. But on a day when a federal official acknowledged the death toll from this storm could be in the thousands, we start with the eruption of more violence. It's a deadly shooting here in the chaos of New Orleans. A developing story, and NBC's Carl Quintanilla joins us now with the latest. Carl?
Good evening, John. It is a chaotic and developing story. According to the Associated Press, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers says some of its contractors were fired upon by unknown gunmen as they crossed a New Orleans bridge. And meanwhile, the Associated Press quotes police officials as saying police killed 5 or 6 of those gunmen. It was all part of a violent day that we witnessed firsthand. Chasing these alleged suspects, police today were forced to stop escorting a convoy of rescue boats. The suspects and an officer are injured. It's this kind of urban warfare that makes life even more difficult for those trying to rescue and deliver relief. How are they supposed to get to people when they've got to go through gunfire on their way there? These construction workers will poke a hole in a levee, allowing millions of gallons of water to drain. But their police escort had to leave to provide backup at the firefight.
We're more or less stuck right here in the middle right now.
Not every holdout is violent.
Kill him! Kill him!
Rescuers listen for the stranded, but often meet the stubborn.
What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go down to the Superdome and stand up and burn up down there. I'm nice and cool now.
As rescuers mark evacuated streets, avoiding obstacles above and below. Even firefighters carry guns.
But there are gangs roving around different parts of the city.
In a catch-22, the sporadic violence actually discourages some from leaving. This man being rescued may be gone for months, so his wife hounds him to lock the house. Concerns about security among the rescued and the rescuers as New Orleans struggles to keep order. The one police officer we were able to talk to following that firefight said he has seen 5 since Hurricane Katrina, but today's, he said, was the worst. John?
NBC's Carl Quintanilla. Carl, thank you. On the Gulf Coast, the rescues and recovery have been joined by recriminations. The Bush administration stung by criticism that the initial response was too little too late. NBC's Tom Costello at the FEMA command post in Baton Rouge tonight. Tom?
John, good evening to you. And now there is talk that this death toll could go well into the thousands across the Gulf Coast and even in New Orleans. And with that, administration officials today were on the ground defending the government's response, but also getting a first-hand reaction and a look at the rescue operations.
Nearly a week after the levee broke in New Orleans, rescuers continued to pull victims off rooftops in the pitch black of night and under a searing Louisiana sun. With the death toll expected to climb into the thousands in New Orleans alone, a local politician said on Meet the Press the federal government's slow response is partly to blame.
Bureaucracy has committed murder here in the greater New Orleans area, and bureaucracy has to stand trial.
But while the administration admits mistakes were made, Homeland Security Secretary Michael Chertoff says the focus must be on the ongoing emergency.
So no heads will roll.
Tim, in due course, if people want to go and chop heads off, there'll be an opportunity to do it. The question I would put to people is, what do you want to have us spend our time on now?
Chertoff and other administration officials fanned out across the region today. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice in Alabama.
Y'all are doing a great job.
And Defense Secretary Rumsfeld reviewing the operations involving 54,000 troops on the ground.
It is a natural disaster of historic proportions. No one can come up with anything that approximates it in the history of our country.
Today, the National Guard's commanding general said he could not have pre-positioned equipment any closer.
We don't pre-position at the eye of the hurricane. And as you recall, a week ago this time, we were looking at that hurricane coming right at New Orleans.
The scope of the disaster so great, today NAACP President Bruce Gordon called on the government to establish a victims relief fund, akin to the one established for the 9/11 victims.
And this disaster here in the southeast United States is no less significant, no less dramatic, and the people who are the victims of the lowest socioeconomic group in this country.
And then, John, there is this information as well. Louisiana State University's Hurricane Center has told FEMA that they have run a computer model taking into account everything that has happened to get a feeling for how many people may have died in New Orleans. John, tonight, their estimate is more than 10,000 in New Orleans alone. Back to you.
NBC's Tom Costello. Tom, thank you. Here in New Orleans, there's an eerie sense that this city is almost turned into a ghost town. Still, helicopters filled the sky, carrying out rescues in flooded neighborhoods today as officials worked hard to remove water from the Big Easy. NBC's Don Teague is here now with the latest on that. Don?
Good evening, John. We've watched boatloads of victims arrive here within the last hour as the operation to rescue this city continues. In 48 hours, downtown New Orleans has gone from uncontrolled chaos to a state of lockdown. Most streets deserted except for a few holdout residents. They're seemingly outnumbered by soldiers and police officers who've taken over. In flooded areas, the rescues continue.
This is ground below zero.
The daily tally of those pulled from submerged homes still in the hundreds. Rescuers saved these people this morning.
Water everywhere, up to the roof, up to the ceiling.
20 feet. Up to
20
the ceiling.
feet. Down into the roof.
We were fighting for our life.
The death toll, too, is rising and taking its toll on those trying to save lives. At least 2 New Orleans police officers have committed suicide. 200 more have reportedly walked off the job. But this city will survive on its faith and hard work. They've already started cleaning up the monumental mess left by the storm and its victims.
There's not a lot we can do, but we're doing what we can.
And hotels are bringing in their own power and preparing to reopen.
To feel like we're moving forward.
If for no other reason than to prove a point.
Because there's a strong resolve here to survive, and for New Orleans residents, that means making this a great city once again. John?
NBC's Don Teague. Don, thank you. From New Orleans, now we move 90 miles up the coast into Mississippi, where residents are desperate for basic services, clean water, power, gas, and more help from the government. NBC's Mike Taibbi joins us now from Biloxi. Mike?
Good evening, John. Yes, with a military helping hand, this city of 55,000 is ever so slowly getting up off the mat, but it may never reach its full height again. Laden with supplies and gear, hovercraft from the assault ship Iwo Jima hit the beach at Biloxi, even as the stricken city saw some power restored, and as Army Air National Guard helicopters scoured the most isolated corners of the coastline, finally getting food, water, ice, and baby supplies to those in need.
This is the most supplies we've had to distribute. Hey, this is fantastic now.
But morgue teams are also getting ready to begin the process of identifying the dead, likely hundreds of victims by one official estimate. And then there's the loss of whole chunks of a city's history and its immediate future. Because of the growth of casino gambling, Biloxi's 6,000 hotel rooms and 1,000 condominium units were going to triple in the next few years. Not now.
We were on the verge, we were on the cusp of just a whole new level of growth. And those things, you know, they're just all on hold right now.
At the moment, only a couple of the 9 ruined casinos here are even sending out word there's a thought to reopening, and then for 6 months at the very earliest. John?
NBC's Mike Taibbi in Biloxi. Mike, thank you. Hundreds of thousands of hurricane evacuees are now in shelters across the country, but the epicenter for survivors is Houston, Texas. NBC's Ron Allen has been spending time with evacuees and joins us from that city. Ron?
Good evening, John. Texas officials are now saying this state has reached its limit with nearly 250,000 evacuees. Here in Houston, the first stop for new arrivals, they've already begun moving people out of the Astrodome behind me, the main shelter, to ease the growing strain. It's a city within the city of Houston. The Astrodome's 16,000 new residents even have their own zip code. Most plan to be here a while.
Hoping to relocate, try to restore my life, you know, get back on track and start all over again.
Glad to have you.
Houston opened its arms so wide it's been forced to redirect tens of thousands of evacuees to cities like Dallas and San Antonio. Nationally, at least a dozen states plan to shelter evacuees. Some arrive this weekend in Florida, Arizona, and Colorado. Back in Houston, few evacuees are as fortunate as Tyra Myers, a single mother of 3. She was invited home to live with Anissa Landano and her family.
I think it's a blessing as far as my kids is concerned.
And I think everyone needs to open their hearts and open their homes.
2 families this crisis has made one. No one here thinks it's wise to keep so many people in such huge shelters for a very long period of time. In Houston, city officials are scrambling to find open housing, jobs, and schools for kids. And the governor of Texas is now saying that he plans an airlift to take some evacuees out of here to other states that are willing to help. John?
NBC's Ron Allen in Houston. Ron, thank you. Now, the other major story tonight, the death of William Rehnquist, the Chief Justice of the United States. His passing removes a strong conservative voice, but offers this administration a double opening to reshape the highest court in the land. Here's NBC's Justice correspondent, Pete Williams.
After learning last night of William Rehnquist's death, President Bush said today he'll act soon on a successor.
I will choose in a timely manner a highly qualified nominee to succeed Chief Justice Rehnquist.
He used that same phrase in a timely manner after Sandra Day O'Connor announced her retirement, and just 2 weeks later he chose John Roberts to succeed her. Whoever follows William Rehnquist will replace the court's senior conservative. During his 33 years on the bench, 19 as Chief Justice, longer than anyone else in more than a century, he became the architect of a legal approach that pushed the court to the right.
I think I have had some say as to the development of constitutional law.
and I'm naturally pleased that I have.
The Rehnquist court shifted more power to the states at the expense of Congress, made it harder to sue for some forms of discrimination, and loosened restrictions on use of tax money by religious schools. In recent weeks, the Chief Justice had told friends he was looking forward to serving with John Roberts, who was one of his law clerks in the early 1980s. A Senate committee was scheduled to begin confirmation hearings for Roberts on Tuesday, but now some Democrats are calling for at least a week's delay, partly because so many senators and Roberts himself will want to attend the Rehnquist funeral.
We certainly have a week's cushion built into the hearings, and we can spend the time remembering Justice Rehnquist and not rushing to the hearings.
A delay would also give Democrats time to consider any changes in tactics now that President Bush will have a second chance to mold the court's future. No matter how it goes with Roberts, it's clear now the court will begin its new term next month with no Chief Justice.
This is not like the President of the United States dying. It's more like the Speaker of the House dying. The leader is gone, but the institution can move on.
To succeed William Rehnquist, the president could choose someone from outside the Supreme Court, or he could choose someone who's now on the court and elevate them to be chief, or he could change his mind about John Roberts and nominate him to be Chief Justice. John?
NBC's Pete Williams. Pete, thank you. When NBC Nightly News continues from New Orleans, questions and qualifications, a look at the head of recovery efforts when we come back.
It's frustrating. Just when you're ready to relax, that's when it happens. The urge to move, along with uncomfortable sensations in your legs. They're hard to describe, but they can even keep you from getting to sleep. You feel the urgent need to get up and move, just to get some relief. There's a name for it, restless leg syndrome. And if you have it, you're among the nearly 1 in 10 U.S. adults who do. Want to know more? Visit restlesslegs.com or talk to your doctor.
Tears keep our eyes naturally moist. If you use over-the-counter drops several times a day, you may have chronic dry eye due to decreased tear production. Ask your eye doctor about Restasis. With continued use, Restasis helps increase your natural ability to produce tears, which may be suppressed by inflammation due to chronic dry eye. It should not be used by patients with active eye infections and has not been studied in patients with a history of herpes viral infections of the eye. The most common side effect is a burning sensation.
I'm glad I asked my doctor. Thanks, Restasis.
Me? I'm a problem solver. One problem I thought I'd solved? My acid reflux disease. I thought it was just bad heartburn. But when I went back to my doctor, he told me over time stomach acid had damaged the lining of my esophagus. He prescribed Nexium. Said I needed more than heartburn relief. My esophagus needed repair. Nexium healed the erosions in my esophagus, and one prescription Nexium pill a day keeps me healed and relieves my heartburn. My doctor did say other serious stomach conditions may still exist, and headache, diarrhea, and abdominal pain could be side effects of Nexium. Even the best problem solvers need a little help sometimes.
Ask your doctor about Nexium, the healing purple pill.
My dad and I have been in the septic business for over 40 years. A septic system today can cost many, many thousands of dollars to replace. In my opinion, using Rid-X once a month makes costly repairs less likely.
Rid-X uses 100% natural bacteria and enzymes to break down hard-to-dissolve waste, even paper, to help keep your septic system operating efficiently and prevent backups between pumpings.
I've always recommended Rid-X, and I've never recommended anything else.
Rid-X, the #1 septic treatment brand.
We are back from New Orleans now. In the 6 days since Katrina hit, the course of criticism has been rising. For many, the focus and the failure has been FEMA and the man at the top, Michael Brown. Here's NBC's senior investigative correspondent, Lisa Myers.
This was Michael Brown's biggest job before landing at FEMA, supervising judges at Arabian horse shows. The embattled FEMA director does not mention in his official biography on the internet that for 9 years he was commissioner of the International Arabian Horse Association. Association officials tell NBC News that Brown resigned under pressure from that job before joining FEMA.
People wondered how he got to FEMA, as we all did, and it's certainly
What he did with the Arabian Horse Association was nothing what he does with FEMA.
Brown was brought into FEMA by his college roommate, Joe Albaugh, President Bush's first campaign manager and FEMA director. At the time, Brown's only prior experience in emergency services was in a suburb of Oklahoma City in the mid-70s. He became FEMA director when Albaugh left in 2003. A former FEMA manager questions Brown's qualifications.
His lack of experience in emergency management may have played a role.
Critics also say Brown doesn't seem on top of the situation. The day the levees broke, he said, "I don't want to alarm anyone that New Orleans is filling up like a bowl. That isn't happening." The day after television reports of thousands stranded at the convention center, Brown said,
"The federal government just learned about those people today."
However, on Friday, the president expressed confidence in Brown.
Brownie, you're doing a heck of a job. The FEMA director is working 24 hours.
Tonight, Homeland Security officials defend Brown. They say he was a senior FEMA manager during 9/11 and is working day and night to save lives in the largest relief effort in American history. Lisa Myers, NBC News, Washington.
When we return tonight from New Orleans, presidential crises. For George Bush, first came Katrina, now the court, as the nation follows the courage of rescuers in the Crescent City.
Tonight, will you be able to catch a great night's sleep? Or will your restless mind keep chasing sleep away?
I've got to remember that appointment tomorrow. Did I send the car payment?
Introducing Lunesta, a sleep aid that can give you and your restless mind the sleep you need. Lunesta helps most people sleep all through the night and works quickly, so take it right before bed. Lunesta is non-narcotic and approved for long-term use. Of course, do not use sleep medicines for extended periods without first talking to your doctor. Be sure you have at least 8 hours to devote to sleep before becoming active. Until you know how you'll react to Lunesta, you should not drive or operate machinery. Avoid taking Lunesta with alcohol. All sleep medicines carry some risk of dependency. Side effects may include unpleasant taste, headache, drowsiness, and dizziness. Ready to catch a great night's sleep? Just climb into bed and leave the rest to Lunesta.
Know what time it is? How right you are, because triple acting show works 3 ways. See, spray and wash dual runs. Triple acting shout clings to the stain to penetrate and lift them away. To get out tough stains like blood, dirty motor oil. Triple acting shout does a number on the toughest stains. Got a stain? S.E. Johnson, a family company.
In the future, everyone will protect their eyes from sun damage like they protect their skin. Transitions lenses. They automatically adjust to changing light and block harmful UV rays and glare. So don't wait until tomorrow. The danger is here today, and so is the protection. Ask your eye care professional about Transitions lenses. Transitions. Healthy sight in every light.
This storm of the century and the selection of a second Supreme Court justice is providing the president with a week of extraordinary challenges. Here's NBC's Kelly O'Donnell.
The president arrived at Red Cross headquarters just minutes after his Roosevelt Room tribute to the late Chief Justice. The implicit message, Mr. Bush cannot appear to spare any more time away for hurricane relief.
This country is coming together to help people who hurt.
Apart from the gigantic real-life rescue underway, the president's credibility has taken on water, voiced by some of the suffering earlier this week.
Bush is not sending these people to help us like he's saying.
And today from public office holders.
There was not great leadership last week.
Even conservative newspapers laid blame on Mr. Bush. Today's Arizona Republic accused the president of uninformed complacency, while the Orange County Register wrote the president's recognition of the crisis came too late for too many people. The president may have complicated his own efforts with lighthearted comments. In the disaster zone Friday, this reference to Mississippi Senator Trent Lott's destroyed home.
This guy lost his entire house. There's going to be a fantastic house, and I'm looking forward to sitting on the porch.
By Saturday morning, a more somber tone in the Rose Garden.
We will not allow bureaucracy to get in the way of saving lives.
The president ramped up resources, mobilized more troops, and wrapped his arms around survivors.
The president, I think, is doing everything he can at this time.
Still, he is left with a challenge.
First impressions are lasting ones, and I think the first impression was that the president did not react to this hurricane in the same way that he did after 9/11.
Senior advisors say they are acutely aware of the second guessing and plan what they call a sustained hands-on presence as the president returns to the region tomorrow. Kelly O'Donnell, NBC News, the White House.
When NBC Nightly News returns from New Orleans tonight, keeping the faith, spiritual recovery in the wake of the storm, and saving the stranded as more people escape the flood.
That's me, Lola, and today's my 11th day with Prilosec OTC. You know, when I'd get frequent heartburn, I didn't just miss the food, I missed the cooking. But now that I have my Prilosec OTC, that's all changed. It started working for me on the first day. Let me see. On day 2, I did a stir fry. Day 6, I bought fresh cherries and baked a pie for the first time in I don't know how long. Today, I'm having the family over for Lola's lasagna. Imagine 0 heartburn for 24 hours with 1 pill a day. That's what's so great about Prilosec OTC. It's day 11 for me. What day are you on?
Why go so far as to equip a sedan with a smoother riding double wishbone front suspension, 235 horsepower V6, and electronic stability control? Because instead of cutting corners, we'd rather take them. The all-new highly agile 2006 Sonata, a Hyundai like you've never seen before.
All of us have internal plumbing. But for some of us with frequent urges, our pipes just don't work as well as they should. Sometimes you worry you could spring an embarrassing leak. So why deal with it on your own when there's something more you can do? Treat it once daily with Vesicare. Vesicare can reduce urges and may even help relieve bladder leakage. If you have certain types of stomach, urinary, or glaucoma problems, do not take Vesicare. While taking Vesicare, if you experience a serious allergic reaction, severe abdominal pain, or become constipated for 3 or more days, tell your doctor right away. Common side effects are dry mouth, constipation, blurred vision, and indigestion. So why wait? Ask your doctor today if Vesicare is right for you. Fewer urges and leaks. With Vesicare, it's not just a pipe dream.
On Rita Cosby Live and Direct, the remarkable stories of heroism and heartbreak only Rita can bring you. Live and direct from Louisiana, MSNBC tonight.
Disaster leads to outrage. NBC Nightly News Monday.
On this first Sunday since the storm, devastated communities are coming together for services. They are finding power in prayer and in participating as a congregation once again. Here's NBC's Ron Mott.
Along Mississippi's Gulf Coast this Sunday, they came to reunite. They came to pray.
One God, now and forever.
But mostly, they came to see just how much Katrina changed the symbols of their faith. In Biloxi, a boombox in place of a piano, lawn chairs for pews.
I can't tell the difference between being really happy and being really sad. I cry on both occasions.
Mass at the destroyed Episcopal Church of the Redeemer never looked so rugged.
It's time to rise and meet the challenges in your hand.
At the Church of God in nearby Gulfport, there's little damage, but plenty of tears and reflection.
And I need to hear something positive sometime. If not, I don't believe I'll make it. The storm has taught me a lot that I need to change my life.
Katrina spared no denomination, no religion.
The church is not the building. The church is the members, the body of Christ, the people. This is just a place where we meet to worship.
But already they're looking forward to the restoration, making stronger religious commitments as well as stronger structures.
I know for a fact this coast will rebuild after this. I mean, it's the fact that we're all out here today is proof of that.
Was blind, but now I see.
revealing faith ever clearer in light of Katrina's destruction. Ron Mott, NBC News, Biloxi, Mississippi.
This Sunday was also a day of reflection for some here in New Orleans. We end tonight's broadcast with a story of faith, perseverance, and neighbors helping neighbors. Ever since the storm hit, her friends have been calling Mary Gracianette Saint Mary.
She is God sent. I wouldn't know where to go if it wasn't for her.
She's been feeding her neighbors at her restaurant.
Knock on every door and find out who's in there and if they're hungry.
Mary rode out the storm in this room. In the chaos that followed, she's also found time to help clean up her church, St. Agnes Catholic Church down the street. That's where her daughter, who had not heard from Mary in almost a week, finally found her yesterday.
So worried about your mama.
Today, Mary came back to St. Agnes with a few friends. There was no priest, so they prayed together.
Seeing the people here, knowing that we still have faith, our church is still here. The doors are open for everyone.
On this Sunday, the open doors of St. Agnes became their refuge from the storm. And that's Nightly News for this Sunday. I'm John Seigenthaler reporting from New Orleans. For all of us at NBC News, good night.
NBC News, America's news leader.
A special Dateline Monday at 8/7 Central. As the relief effort continues, more and more help arrives. But is it enough? Dateline Monday, NBC 8/7.
It's Carl's Patio's huge Labor Day week.